we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the fourth count of the information, Anthony Huber, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the fifth count of the information, Gage Grosskreutz, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty.
Kyle Rittenhouse buckles in court as he hears the news that would shape the rest of his life. Not guilty on all charges. Here's his attorney outside the courthouse moments later.
I mean, you know, if he had to do it all over again and you said same thing is going to happen and life is going to be put in a living hell for a year and you're going to not know if you're going to be a free man, he would say, I wouldn't go.
Good evening. We have a verdict and perhaps closure, although that might be hopeful and unrealistic. This case will likely be debated for a long time. Over the next hour, we will digest and analyze, and I'm sure over the weekend, many of us will as well. Here's what President Biden said about the verdict today.
I stand by what the jury has concluded. The jury system works, and we have to abide by it.
So for everyone's sake, particularly those in Kenosha, we should probably take heed and do our best to unite around those words. And listen, those words were a far cry, though, from a tweet then candidate Biden sent last year suggesting Rittenhouse was a white supremacist. We will get to more on that later this hour. We'll also break down the legal questions this case has raised, not only the performance of the prosecution, but the law itself. Most legal minds, including many on this program, predicted an acquittal based on the facts of the case presented and the law itself. The Wisconsin Law Journal even writing, if the jury acquits Kyle Rittenhouse, then they will be doing what the law requires them to do. That should prompt us to ask why the law dictates this result. It came down to self-defense, and the jury agreed under the law. Those are the facts. And this is a reasonable opinion to share on this night from author Stephen Beschloss. There's something deeply broken in our society and culture when a teenager thinks it's a good idea to strap on an AR-15 assault rifle and enter a violent, chaotic protest. It's time to exhale as a country, and as the president said, respect the jury's decision. First, though, we're going to break it all down, starting with Brian Enton, live on the ground for us tonight in Kenosha. Brian, how did it go today after the verdict, and how is it right now?
Well, you can imagine it was emotional outside the courthouse after the verdict, especially because you had both sides very, very close together, protesters on both sides, and some were very happy and some were very, very upset, and there was some tension there for a little while. But the numbers weren't huge. Again, maybe 40 to 50 protesters outside when the verdict was read, and behind me right now, I'd say there's maybe 5 to 10 left out here right now. But you can imagine for Kyle Rittenhouse and his family, this was a massive relief. He was facing life in prison and now not guilty on all counts. We asked the family spokesman what's next for Kyle.
So he's in college now. Hopefully we can make him safe enough, feel safe enough to just be an 18-year-old boy.
So Kyle's family optimistic that he'll have a somewhat normal future, but you can imagine he really is a target at this point. Even when he left the courthouse, he was surrounded by security and taken to an undisclosed location. Joe?
Ryan, are there any plans for tonight from police? I guess, once night falls, there is a concern that there might be a little more trouble. Are they gearing up for anything possible tonight?
Well, they're telling us that there are plans, but they're not going into detail. And you're right, while it's been very, very calm, there is this concern that we've heard about on social media that there could be groups gathering outside the city that would come in after nightfall. The sheriff told us no indication of that happening at this point, but they do have teams on standby, and we know that the National Guard is also on standby at an undisclosed location.
All right, let's hope it stays peaceful. Brian Enton, live for us tonight in Kenosha. Thank you very much. Joining me now for more, criminal defense attorney Mark O'Mara and attorney Trent Copeland, two great voices we've leaned on in the past, and they're back again tonight. Mark, let's start with you. Not to oversimplify this, but it was pretty clear going in this was going to come down to self-defense, and in the end, it sounds like it did.
Exactly right. The question always was, even if he wasn't supposed to be there at 17, even if he shouldn't have had the AR-15, when you have somebody approach you, as they said, advanced or lunged at you, and you have a gun, the presumption is the gun is now in play, and it rises the testosterone, it rises the adrenaline, and it also rises the justification for using that weapon in self-defense. So unfortunately, I think that's what the jury was struggling with, and they finally decided not that he was innocent, they don't need to get there, but that the state had not proved or disproved self-defense beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right, beyond a reasonable doubt. That's key. Trent, for those who disagree, they'll probably say, you know, you shouldn't show up at a riot with an AR. And that was part of what the prosecution tried to drill down on. And Rittenhouse provoked this, in their words. There's a little more, and the lawyer for Rittenhouse talked quite a bit today about several aspects. Let's get him on what he said about that. Here's Mark Richards.
He was legal in having that firearm. And obviously, once the evidence came in, the judge threw the charge. They threw the curfew. And those were things that the state wanted to, you know, kind of hang their hat on, so they could argue he couldn't be there, he couldn't own the gun.
So, Trent, was it smart? No. Was it legal? Yes. And that person can, in the end, at least in this case, claim self-defense if what happened happened.
Well, yeah, that's right, Joe. And I think Mark's right. Provocation in this case was key, and it was paramount. And the reality is, whether you like it or not, simply carrying an AR-15, having that strapped over your shoulder in the middle of a chaotic scene, in the middle of what looked to be somewhat of a riot, is not illegal, per se. But I would disagree with Mark in the sense of, I don't think that simply having a gun, having a rifle, in and of itself justifies the use of it. And I don't think that's what he's exactly saying, but it sounded like that. And I think that's what I've been indicating earlier on this show and on others, in terms of the idea that you can bring a weapon to a riot, to a chaotic, incredibly inflamed scene, and then expect that that is not going to produce some provocation in and of itself. And not just bring the rifle, but point the rifle. As I've said before, you can own a gun, you can carry it, but you can't point it. And the moment Kyle Rittenhouse began to point that weapon and menace that weapon towards other people, then suddenly they had the right, they had the justification to use self-defense as well. And remember, for all those people, as you said a moment ago, Joe, who disagree with this verdict, it will turn on an issue of whether or not you believe that Kyle Rittenhouse was the only person who had the right to engage in self-defense. And I would say that, you know, while the Second Amendment may have prevailed today, it may have done so at the expense of the First Amendment. And my view is that we are not safer today. We are less safe than we were as a result of this verdict.
All right. That's a great point from both of you and a great way to open. Mark, let's play a little more from the defense attorney here. And here's what he said about how risky it was to put Rittenhouse on the stand. In the end, apparently it wasn't.
Had to put him on. It wasn't a close call. At certain points, we wondered whether we would put him on. We did. We had a mock jury, and we did two different juries, one with him testifying, one without him testifying. It was substantially better when he testified, I mean, to a marked degree, and that sealed it. But in Wisconsin, if you don't put a client on the stand, you're going to lose, period.
Mark, how key was that decision?
I think you have to, and what he said is exactly right. It is the defendant who has to say that I was in reasonable fear of immediate great bodily harm, right? So that's got to come either from a statement he gave to somebody or from his own words in front of that jury, because they've got to believe that the reason why he did what he did, don't forget, self-defense is an intentional act. He intended to kill or shoot those people because he thought he had to. So you've got to get that across, that yes, I did it intentionally, but I only did it because I felt the fear that was imminent and that I was going to be hurt. And again, I agree with what was said a moment ago. Kyle Rittenhouse used that weapon as the first choice of response, not the last. He should have used it as the last. I hope it didn't come across that I was justifying his actions, but whenever a gun is put in play, even when it shouldn't be there, when it's put in play, then yes, the chances are it's going to be used.
Yeah, Trent, the thing, you and I talked about this last week, that's tricky about this is when you look at the video, you can certainly make the case that the two people who were shot in the street later were trying to neutralize a threat. And you know, the Rosenbaum case sort of stands on its own. But to your point, if that's the case there, and these people thought they were trying to neutralize a threat, the jury in the end ultimately decided, which was in the instructions as I read them, that once Rittenhouse felt threatened, he was clear to shoot.
You're right, Joe, and you read those instructions appropriately and correctly. But, you know, here's the rub. I happen to think that, remember, let's start from this. Wisconsin does not have a true manslaughter charge. What they have are different variations of homicide. And if I were the prosecution, instead of giving the jury a menu, a panoply of choices between reckless, intentional, negligent, all to choose from, I would have charged one count for each of the acts, each of the killings, and it would have been second-degree intentional homicide. That would have been much easier in terms of how you present the case, much easier in terms of the menu of choices the jury would have had, and would have made a clear presentation. In the end, and look, and we know this to be true, even the judge was unclear with respect to these jury instructions, with respect to these charges, and all of it left, I think, this jury with an inability to come to a consensus in terms of how they wanted to plead this. And remember, this was a jury that took their job seriously. Sure. They worked diligently. This was a deliberation that took nearly 30 hours. So it's not as if they walked in and then they walked out clear as a bell. They struggled with these charges. They struggled with these claims. And so I think in the end, the prosecution made a very calculated choice to charge them the way they did. And I think it turned out not to be the way this case should have been presented, in my view.
Mark, a number of key witnesses played a role in this, and several of them were witnesses for the state who ended up helping the defense case.
So one of the first witnesses that I noticed, which I believe was the second actual witness, which was the Daily Caller reporter with the camera or the phone. And I remember listening to it off to my left. And when he started talking about how Rittenhouse was advanced upon and how somebody lunged for his weapon, I'm sitting there thinking, wait a minute. This is a state witness, and if that is your best witness, your second witness out of the box, and they're coming in giving a defense presentation, I literally said to people I was watching the trial with, I said, if this is their best case, their case is over, because unfortunately the state carries such a high burden in, as Trent said, a very complicated manner of viewing. You know, we as lawyers look at this case and go, well, okay, we know what self-defense is because we've studied it. We know what beyond a reasonable doubt is. But normal jurors look at these cases and they're confused from day one. So when the state has an inconsistent presentation, they get lost.
Well, and there was also, you know, Gage Grosskreutz. That testimony was key as well. Listen, criminal defense attorney Mark O'Mara and attorney Trent Copeland, again, it's great to have both of you to lead us off tonight. Appreciate the time. Thank you.
Great to be here.
We have continuing coverage of the Rittenhouse verdict right here on NewsNation. How big of a role did the video play in this case and others like it? From George Floyd to Ahmaud Arbery, video has changed everything. I'll speak with a former police officer next about how policing has changed with body cams. And a journalist recounts that fateful night in Kenosha. Don't forget, you can follow us on social media at the Donlon Report on Twitter. Back after this. Video playing a major role in the acquittal today of Kyle Rittenhouse, including this drone video showing a chase. This video even leading at one point the defense to call for a mistrial. Let's talk about the pivotal role of video in this trial with retired NYPD Detective Tom Ruskin. Will also be joined by Daily Caller reporter Jorge Ventura, who shot a lot of the video that we've seen as a result. But Tom, let's start with you and talk first about just how important video has become, not just in this case, but in many others.
In most cases, video nowadays has become very important. We look at the case recently in New York City, where a man sexually attacked a woman in Central Park, and police were able to track every step of that man, who turned out to be a homeless man, down to the point where he tried to sell her stolen cell phone in a store in Lower Manhattan. Video has become the instrument of police, good and bad, and it's also become very valuable in court trials to allow the jury to see what actually happened, either from the police view or, in this case, from a drone.
Yeah, it allows all of us to actually see it, Tom. But I guess the other interesting point on that is, even though we all see it, not everyone sees the same thing, even though it's right there on video.
That's correct. I mean, everyone has different perceptions. We know from sitting or watching juries how they came to their formulation of different verdicts. But basically, the same way you and I sit at home and can watch the body cam of a police officer and see something later on, everyone has a different view of what may have happened at that time, as long as they have a full picture of the full video.
Right. Even in the case, let's welcome Jorge in now. Jorge, we bring you on this question here because, as I said, you shot a lot of the video that we've seen from Kenosha that night. The video of Gabe Grosskreutz and whether he had the gun up where he had it, it was on video, but then there's still a lot of debate about what exactly happened. What do you take away from all of this video that was shot during this situation in Kenosha and the result in the courtroom?
Well, I think, Joe, that there were just too many videos from too many different angles and too many on-the-front journalists to kind of go against that narrative. So I do believe that all that video was a strong case for Kyle Rittenhouse for his case of self-defense. You could see it when Anthony Huber struck Rittenhouse with a skateboard. You could also see the jump kick man who jump kicks Kyle, but also Gage Grosskreutz when he had that firearm and pointed the weapon at Rittenhouse. So I think all those angles and all that video was just too much to overcome. And, you know, Rittenhouse, I think today got the correct verdict.
Jorge, look back on those nights you were in Kenosha, and the video has also been able to show us just how out of control it was. You described it as street warfare.
Exactly, Joe. I'll keep saying it today. I think it was a complete war zone. You know, it just felt that there was no control. Even law enforcement, there was a lack of law enforcement. I mean, whether you look anywhere in that city of Kenosha, it felt like almost every single building was burning down. There was even apartment complexes that had to put signs out saying, hey, there's kids that live up here. Please don't burn down these buildings. So it was complete, utter chaos. The amount of assaults I saw was numerous. And yeah, like I said, Joe, before, it felt like a complete war zone that night.
Yeah. So let's bring Tom back in on this because the ACLU has released a statement, Tom, that says this situation represents an outrageous failure to protect protesters by the Kenosha PD and the sheriff's office. This, as Jorge pointed out, happened on night 3 of these protests. And there are people, Tom, who will say, why was there a night 1?
Well, that happened. I mean, as someone who lived through Crown Heights and the chaos of Crown Heights based on a little kid being killed by an ambulance being driven by Hasidic Jews and going 3 nights in Crown Heights, you can totally understand how it can ramp up and how it takes a while for a police department to ramp up as well and then to get in additional support to assist them in putting down any kind of riot or burning of buildings or violent crimes.
Yeah, so what do you think police do differently as a result, Tom?
Well, listen, hindsight's always 20/20,
Sure.
especially in the police business, and you can always critique. Going back, you would put more officers on the street. You might ask for the National Guard in Wisconsin versus a city like New York or Los Angeles where police can handle it. But you can always go back and say what we should have done. Always more police, more staging, more, you know, maybe a curfew. Those things can be put into place, but sometimes it's a little late when it's breaking out around you.
Jorge, you've had, what, I guess 6 or 7 hours or so now to digest the verdict today. What will you remember most from that night and what you experienced and saw?
I think what I just remembered most is just, you know, American towns and cities, you know, in the whole summer. And, you know, Kenosha was really that last riot in the summer, but just how the whole summer in the United States was just complete, utter chaos, civil unrest in almost every single major city. And I think what a lot of people kind of forget is the American citizens who suffered, who live in those communities, all the business owners that had their businesses burned down. I think to me that will always stand out. And, you know, hopefully after today we could finally move on because the American citizens that live in Kenosha had had enough, you know, and it's been a tough year and a half for them. So I'm hoping that after today we could move on and kind of start that next chapter in our country.
Tom, I'm pretty sure this will not be the last riot or protest where we see people roll in with ARs. Do you worry, as some do, that this verdict today will only encourage more people to do just that?
Well, I'm hoping that Kenosha remains quiet. I'm hoping that the Kenosha Police Department with the National Guard and the governor and the authorities there will keep Kenosha quiet for the people of Kenosha. But no, it won't be the last time we have seen people take to the streets and potentially get out of hand where police have to take more stringent efforts to put it down.
All right, Tom Ruskin and Jorge Ventura, thank you both very much for joining us tonight. We appreciate the time.
Joe, thank you.
We have some breaking news now. The CDC has just approved COVID-19 booster shots for all Americans and is now urging those 50 and older to get a booster shot as soon as possible. The agency recommending anyone over the age of 18 that's more than 6 months from that second shot to now get that booster. Those who got the Johnson & Johnson shot only need to wait 2 months before getting that boost. The CDC says mix and match of these vaccines is okay. America waited on pins and needles for this verdict today in the Rittenhouse case. Not guilty on all charges. NewsNation live on the ground in Kenosha with continuing coverage. We'll check in with Keleigh Beeson when we come back. And to all our viewers out there, we want to thank you for making NewsNation the fastest growing cable news network in the country. We appreciate you watching. More after this. We are back now with more of our coverage of the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict. We're going to take you live now to Kenosha, Wisconsin with NewsNation's Keleigh Beeson. What's the latest, Keleigh?
Well, Joe, it was a very strong reaction to this verdict. We were on the courthouse steps when it was announced earlier today, and we heard from supporters on both sides of this case. Some people saying with that verdict that they feel like the justice system is broken. Other people saying that they're happy the Constitution is still alive. But the good news in all of this is that these protests did remain peaceful. We were also watching a courtroom feed where we could see Kyle Rittenhouse himself reacting to this verdict. You could almost see how relieved he was. He appeared to almost emotionally break down. Now, the good news in all of this, again, tonight, it has remained peaceful here in Kenosha. There were some arrests that had been made throughout this trial of protesters, small scuffles outside of the courthouse, but no reports of any arrests being made today. Joe.
All right, Keleigh Beeson, live for us in Kenosha. Thanks for the update. We appreciate it. So what took jurors so long? Members deliberated for nearly 26 hours before ultimately delivering Rittenhouse that acquittal on all charges. Let's ask Nicole Deborde, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor. Good to see you again, Nicole. Thanks for the time. The longer this went on,
great to see you.
Yeah, the more people thought this might actually be questioning Kyle Rittenhouse and the verdict that we ultimately got. I guess the longer these go on, the more likely a conviction. So I guess, were you surprised by the decision, and why do you think it took the jury so long?
I really was not surprised. I think that this jury clearly was exercising the thoughtfulness and care that we expect our jurors to exercise, and they actually read this very long and complicated jury charge, which has all the instructions and all the law that they needed to consider. Then they spent time carefully considering the evidence that related to those instructions and came back with a unanimous verdict. So doing all of those things took a great deal of time.
A lot of talk about the odd and sort of unconventional moments we had in this trial, Nicole. Here's what defense attorney Mark Richards said today about the judge.
Judge Schrader gives you a fair trial as a defendant. You don't want him to sentence your client, okay? But in this case, we were looking for a fair trial, so I'd rather have a fair trial. I thought he gave us a fair trial.
He also pointed out that sentencing really was irrelevant in this case because it would have been life in prison. In the end, he was acquitted. So the winning team normally, Nicole, doesn't complain about the refs. And I guess in this way, there are critics who think that the judge sort of tipped the scales in Rittenhouse's favor. Do you agree?
I really don't, but I will tell you that the law is written such that the scales are supposed to be tipped in favor of the accused. And what I mean by that is we have jury trials in criminal cases so that the government must meet a burden, a very, very high burden. It's the highest burden in all of our court proceedings, and they have to overcome that burden beyond all reasonable doubt to get to a guilty verdict. We want the scales to be tipped in favor of people accused by the government. And this judge did everything that he was supposed to do to keep this trial fair and moving along smoothly.
You touched on jury instructions, Nicole. The one time I was on a jury, we were hung up for a while, and in the end, it was that jury instruction that kind of led us to the verdict that we ultimately came to. This case was really unusual, and I printed out the, 34, 35 pages, and it was interesting because one of the jurors, and I think it was the jury foreman in the end, asked to take a copy of those instructions home, and that might have actually kind of helped free up this logjam if there was one in the jury room.
I think you're very possibly correct about that. It's always hard to know what's actually going on back there and why certain questions are being asked or why jurors are taking certain actions until we actually hear the verdict, and then maybe they'll tell us later, right? But the reality is I was very surprised that the judge allowed one of the jurors to take the instructions home. It turned out to not create a problem that the defense would ultimately need to appeal, but there could have been a question about whether all of the deliberation in this case actually happened in that jury room where it's supposed to take place.
And it seems to me, again, to go back to that, it was that instruction about self-defense that I'm guessing, and we'll hopefully hear from some of these jurors at some point, was what tipped the scales in favor of what they ultimately decided. And that is this point that if this person, despite provocation, if they find themselves under attack, then it's okay to defend yourself. And that's kind of where it came down, isn't it?
That's exactly right, and that's what the law says. And the defense lawyers in this case were extraordinarily detailed in their presentation as to every single shot that was fired in this case and as to the provocation for that shot. And the reason that it was legally appropriate, whether or not you agree with the decision that ultimately got made, it was legally, as we now know from this jury's verdict, appropriate in those instances because this jury has decided that it was self-defense.
Right. Nicole Deborde, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor. Thanks for the time. Good to see you. Let's get more now from Ashleigh Banfield, host of Banfield. Ashleigh, we have a lot we want to get to with you. Mark Richards was critical of the original lawyers working with Rittenhouse. We've played some of his interviews from today. Here's a little bit more on that point.
I don't represent causes. I represent clients. And the only thing that ended up mattering to me was whether he was found not guilty or not. I told him when I first met him, when he was in custody, that if he was looking for somebody to go off on a crusade, I wasn't his lawyer.
So actually what he went on to say was someone asked him what he thought made a difference in this trial, and he said getting rid of those lawyers.
Yeah, I watched that whole press conference, Joe, and I was riveted because I wanted to know the personality behind Mark Richards, and I got a real peek into who he was. Yeah. I know a lot of lawyers that don't like their clients. I think he really liked his client. I found it very telling when he said something about, like, I personally don't even like people carrying AR-15s around. And yet he's defending, you know, the poster child right now for you know, gun rights in America. So I thought this was a really intriguing attorney. I really liked this news conference because I felt that he was very genuine.
Yeah, and he actually added a lot to what we were watching here. And one of them that I thought was interesting was this Tumblr issue and how Rittenhouse ultimately picked the jurors. He said the defense had scored the jurors and they actually lost 3 of what they considered were their strongest jurors in that.
Yes, I called it the bingo drum because honestly, Joe, that's what it looked like to me. I'd never seen it before. I thought it was highly unusual. It was certainly legal, nothing wrong with it. There's all sorts of ways that you eliminate jurors from the deliberating pool and make them alternates. He picked them himself, and you're right. I actually checked in with the defense team today with the person whose job it is to help pick the jurors, and she was quite worried about the jurors that were struck, 3 in particular that you just mentioned. That gave them some pause. They were concerned that things didn't look good for them.
Yeah, so one more thing we want to play here quickly, Ashleigh, and get you on. And this is when Mark Richards was asked about the toll this has taken on Kyle Rittenhouse and the process and what they went through in this trial. Here's a bit of what he said.
All I can say is when we prepared Kyle and we worked on his testimony, there were things we couldn't talk about in my office because it got too emotional and he couldn't handle it. He's in, you know, counseling for PTSD, so he doesn't sleep at night.
Ashleigh, what did you make of what he said about Rittenhouse?
Well, I'll tell you what, if you're a lawyer and you're looking at a self-defense, you got to look real long and hard at your client, at how genuine your client is, and you have to think seriously about putting that client on the stand. It's a horrible decision. It's ultimately the client's decision. You advise them as a lawyer, but it's their decision. But if you've got a guy like Kyle, I didn't know it till I saw him on the stand. I'd have picked him too. I'd have said, get up there on the stand. He does have a very sort of interesting affect to him, and I thought, personally, just having watched trials for so long, and I'm not speaking politically, so don't throw anything at the TV, I thought he was very good on the stand. I thought he was very genuine on the stand, and I thought he was the kind of defendant that does get through to jurors, even if you don't like what he's saying. Okay,
Right.
let's be clear. Even if you don't like what he was saying, he had a mannerism that is very effective. And I think that's what Mark Richards was saying, is that he got to know the kid and thought that's a good bet. Albeit, Joe, he did say in Wisconsin, you put your client on the stand or you lose,
Right.
you know, and a self-defense case.
More interesting insight from him today, and from you as well. Ashleigh Banfield, good to see you. Thanks for the time.
Hey, by the way, we've got that jury consultant who picked that jury on the show tonight at 10 o'clock. So come and hear what she thought of the jurors she picked.
We'll see you then. Thanks, Ashleigh.
Okay.
President
Thanks,
Biden responding to the Rittenhouse verdict today, saying the jury system works. But does that overshadow his past statements? We'll have both sides on that issue coming up. First, though, a live look at the courthouse in Kenosha. Back as we continue our coverage in a minute. Kyle Rittenhouse back home tonight, a free man. His lawyer says he wants to put all this behind him, and tonight reaction is pouring in. Many continuing to debate the verdict tonight. We'll do it right now with Republican strategist Paris Dennard and former Democratic Congressional Press Secretary Rochelle Ritchie. Stand by for a second, guys. Let's listen to the president again before we start.
I stand by what the jury has concluded. The jury system works, and we have to abide by it.
Rochelle, the jury system works. Shouldn't we all agree with that or no?
I mean, it just depends on who you ask and the outcome that you want. I think that unfortunately for a lot of people, they look at our justice system as subjective, and it's really supposed to be objective, at least, you know, when you're on the jury. But listening to Biden's statements, I think he had some sort of medical procedure today. So I'm going to just blame that on maybe that medical procedure or some anesthesia that he may have had, because I think that it's a little hypocritical to one day say the jury, you know, our justice system works, and then the next to campaign on the justice system is broken. So I'm a little confused on where he stands on that.
Right. Yeah, and just for clarification, he did have a colonoscopy today, which actually leads to another interesting point we'll talk about perhaps. Kamala Harris was actually the president for a little while today. But Paris, let's get you on what the president said. Are you good with that or not?
Well, you know, I think President Biden needs to take full responsibility for his past statements that he made. Our RNC chairwoman, Ronna McDaniel, pointed out on Twitter tonight that, you know, he went out of his way to prejudge Kyle Rittenhouse and called him a white supremacist and never took that back without looking at the facts of the case, without looking at who he was, and prejudged him. And so I hope that he will continue to make sure the American people know that the President of the United States believes in our justice system and believes that justice was served because the jury found him not guilty by listening to the evidence. We were not there. We don't know what the deliberation took place in that jury room, but we have to believe that that is what our system is all about. And justice was served. But I will also point out the fact that it was under President Trump that we had criminal justice reform measures that were done. And I think that American people are looking for police reform from this White House, which they promised, which they have not delivered. So I think in many ways, I would agree he seems a little bit hypocritical. He's speaking out of both sides of his mouth, but he needs to be direct to the American people, denounce all forms of violence, apologize for calling Kyle Rittenhouse a white supremacist.
Was that a mistake,
and make sure
Rochelle?
that the American people.
Well, look, I think that if you associate yourself online with certain groups of people, then, you know, the shoe might fit. But again, for him to come out and now say, you know, our jury system works, and if he did say, you know, call Kyle Rittenhouse a white supremacist, and now he's saying, you know, he agrees with this verdict, it is a little confusing. And again, that's why I think he should have just kind of kept his mouth shut on this one until he got better from his medical procedure. But look, I also think that one of the issues that I take with this verdict is that what is this going to say for the future protests? I mean, at the end of the day, no one should have been out in the streets of Kenosha because there was actually a curfew in place. And so what will this say to other people that go out to protest? And will we start seeing people now carry guns? And that's on the left or the right, wherever you fall. Either way, it sends the wrong kind of message, and that's not the kind of violence that we want to see.
Right. And there was David French wrote, acquittal is reasonable, validation is not. It doesn't make a foolish man a hero. We'll leave that there. But let's talk about some of the reaction here. New York Mayor Bill de Blasio said that to call this a miscarriage of justice is an understatement. And Colin Kaepernick tweeted, we just witnessed a system built on white supremacy validate the terroristic acts of a white supremacist. This only further validates the need to abolish our current system. White supremacy cannot be reformed. What system should be abolished?
Well, look, I think that when people talk about the system, particularly if you're an elected official, you are the system. And so when you become an elected official or when you're a police officer or anything like that and you're talking about the system is broken, it is your responsibility to fix it. And I think too often what happens is people conflate racist with systemic racism, and they're two different things. And when we can start talking about systemic racism and the detriment that that has had on people of color or LGBTQ in this country, then I think we can get somewhere. But as long as we continue to just focus on racist people, which you're not going to change the hearts and minds of those people, but what you can do is focus on the issues of systemic racism. That's where the focus needs to be.
Paris?
I think another focus needs to be on public safety. And we have to remember what happened. These Democrats allowed Antifa to roam wild and let all this violence happen in all these communities, destroying black businesses, especially all across this country, especially in Kenosha. And so I wish these Democrats would have spoken out now, these athletes and other celebrities would have spoken out about public safety and had listened. And I think that's what we need to remember. We need to keep communities safe. We need to have law enforcement. We don't need to defund the police like Democrats keep trying to push. We need to have public safety to keep the community safe, and we would have never had this problem to begin with if we would have had law and order. That's an important fact to remember.
And I think that Paris does make a good point, but I want to add to that is that this is the result of ignoring criminal injustice. This is the result of ignoring police brutality. I mean, Martin Luther King himself said that riots are the voice of the unheard. So at some point, people are unfortunately going to get violent when they feel that they are not being heard. So the shoe, I mean, it fits on, it really goes on both ways as far as who ignored what, and now this is the cause.
All right, we'll have you back soon. We appreciate both of you. Paris Dennard and Rochelle Ritchie, always great to have you. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe.
On Balance with Leland Vittert starts at the top of the hour, and he joins us right now with more on, I guess, some of the media reaction to all of this today, too, and there was a lot of it.
Yeah, there certainly was, and I'm going to speak really loudly because I forgot my microphone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I'll have my microphone on. I'll speak loudly. Here's the issue. The media got so much of this wrong. Within 48 hours, the media had convicted Kyle Rittenhouse, and we're going to go through all the things they got wrong. Somehow he crossed state lines to commit a crime. Somehow he had an illegal
Well, he crossed
firearm.
state lines, but not with the weapon.
Right, but all of these things that we knew to be true, and the media never let the facts get in the way of a good story. So we're going to say maybe the media could learn a few things from what happened here, the rush to judgment that happened. Remember, the prosecutors charged after only 48 hours delve into that decision as well.
All right, we'll see you at the top of the hour.
With a microphone.
With a microphone, exactly. Rittenhouse cleared of criminal charges, all of them. Civil lawsuits, though, likely await. What's the difference? We'll break that down with our top prosecutor. Pat Brady joins us ahead. Lots been said about the way the prosecution handled the Rittenhouse case. Some say they bungled the whole thing, all but securing the not guilty verdict for the defense. Joining me now, former federal and state prosecutor, our friend Pat Brady. So, Pat, I know that there were a lot who were critical of the prosecution. Was this a winnable case? I mean, do you think they're looking back now and saying, yes, if we had done this, we might have had a better outcome?
Yeah, I think the problem was they kind of rushed to judgment on the charging. I think they overcharged it, and they charged it wrong. They presented it, I think, a little bit wrong. I think that they didn't necessarily prepare all the witnesses right, so you had some inconsistent statements on the stand. Yeah, I do think there are a lot of problems with it. I don't understand, like we talked the other night, they could have charged the first shooting as a more straight-up first-degree murder and just ignore the second one and likely gotten a conviction. It was a much better case. But I think there are a lot of questions on how the prosecutors handled this case. And I say that apologetically. I know they worked hard and tried, but
sure,
they didn't do a very good job.
Well, we heard some of our lawyers on the first segment here talking about how maybe they thought they overcharged on the first-degree part of it, and maybe had they dropped it down that they would have had a little more success. You thought it was interesting that the prosecution went for these lower or lesser includeds, as they're called. Did you think those would come into play here?
Yeah, I actually thought it would be a compromise verdict. I think most good attorneys, or the best attorneys, start their case with the jury instructions, which were the key to this case, and figure out where the facts and the law fit in. And I think in this case, it looked to me like it was going to be some kind of compromise verdict. But I give the jury credit. They took 4 days. They obviously looked at the instructions. I can't for the life of me believe that the judge actually let somebody take the jury instructions home. That would have been an issue on appeal, I guarantee you, had he been convicted. A lot of mistakes made. But I can't blame the jury from the evidence, and I watched most of the case. You know, the evidence was there for an acquittal.
People might be watching this, Pat, and say, why didn't we hear verdicts on the lesser includeds? Okay, he was not guilty on first degree X. Why not then did we get verdicts on the others?
Well, he was not guilty all the way down. So that's the way.
Right, but they had options for lower, is what I'm saying. You
but-
don't hear it. Once they find not guilty on the top, they're done.
The lessers are gone, yep.
All right, so there is the possibility, Pat, of civil suits that come out of this. It's over for all intents and purposes. There's nothing the prosecution can do with it now. But how would civil suits differ from what we just saw?
Well, the burden of proof is lower. It's a preponderance standard, not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. But looking at Kyle Rittenhouse, I'm not seeing a lot of money.
Well, in the future, I mean, he probably will make some.
Yeah, you know,
sure.
even in the OJ case, they didn't really get much. So they probably will file some civil suits. Maybe there's a homeowner's policy or something, but I don't think that's gonna take him anywhere.
All right, so there were a lot of moments, Pat, that we talked about over the course of this trial. You know, the judge playing Jeopardy with the jurors. There was cheering on Veterans Day. In the end, is this the system that we saw here at work, and is this how it works?
It normally works, I think, better than this. This judge, and I said it for I think it was kind of a goofball, but there are goofball judges all over the country. But I don't think he reflected well on most judges. But, you know, this is it. As I said before, we do have the best criminal justice system in the world, but it's imperfect because it's administered by humans, and they're not perfect. But this was not a great example of justice from the judge or the prosecution, I don't think.
Well, I don't know that it's an example for any of us to look at, really, Pat. I think this is such an anomaly, the whole case, the trial, the circumstances, the riot, the mayhem, the madness. I mean, for anyone to, I think, look at this case and tell me if I'm wrong here and say, okay, we can take away from this that. This was one particular case with really specific circumstances, and it's dangerous to read anything into it.
I agree, and it's in the middle of a pandemic on a hot August night, with all these people at midnight gathered together, and a kid's got an AR-15. That's a recipe for disaster. But just watching politically on both sides of it, I hope people on either, you know, the right or the left, don't overstate the impact or import of this verdict. I agree with you, Joe. This was an aberration. This is Kenosha, Wisconsin. This isn't Detroit or Chicago or some places where this usually happens. So hopefully we can put this behind us. It's the Friday before Thanksgiving, and I hope people kind of forget about it, and that's the end of it.
Well, next up, the Ahmaud Arbery trial.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Well, it's fine. We'll discuss it later, but completely different case.
Yeah. Pat Brady, thanks, as always. Good to have you. Enjoy the weekend. Thank you for your time tonight. Good to have you. Enjoy the weekend. Leland's next. Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.